Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Hey.
Hey, Mike. What day is it? It's hump day. Wednesday night.
9/11.
Wednesday Wham.
Mm-hmm. So, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good. Doing really well.
No hurricanes or forest fires or tornadoes or anything going on in anybody's neighborhood at the moment?
No. There's some people struggling with the forest fire or with the fires out there. So just be
if you're in Louisiana, you're not having a good time right now either. Louisiana or Gulf of Mississippi, or Gulfport down in that area, Biloxi. That's nasty down there.
I keep telling everybody they need to live in the upper Midwest where I live, because or Canada where Martin lives, because
well, we had forest fires last summer, so
you had I live in southern Wisconsin, so about the worst we have to worry about is the occasional tornado and blizzards.
You get blizzards, we get we're right there where the cold air comes down and hits that Gulf warm, moist air, and we get hit with nice little thunderstorms and occasionally blizzards. So fun.
Speaking of thunderstorms and blizzards, hey yo, that pinned comment says Madness Entertainment Group LLC. We have finally become legit.
Woo woo!
All right, congrats, Pops.
All right.
Good for you.
Nice.
All right. Well, tonight's topic, for anybody who's interested, we're going to talk about breaking the fourth wall. Now, I just came back, well, not just, but a couple of weeks ago, went to see the Deadpool Wolverine movie. And of course, everybody knows that the Deadpool movies are notorious for breaking the fourth wall.
Yep.
and
Yep.
also lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of inside jokes. Not only for comics, but for their personal lives. So if you don't follow like all the Hollywood gossip and stuff, some of the jokes you're not going to get. Like my husband's like, he was totally lost. I'm like, oh, you didn't know that they were divorced? You know, whatever. So yes, lots of fourth wall breaking in the Deadpool movies, which is the norm for the comic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Has any of
It
you?
didn't start out that way, but yeah.
Oh, really? Do tell.
No, the original Deadpool didn't do that. It was a lot more serious, wasn't it? I mean, that was Rob Liefeld. I don't think he might have thought of breaking the fourth wall, but I don't think that was in his wheelhouse.
I think he did. Because he did Deadpool as a spoof of Spider-Man.
Okay, yeah, but did he? And he broke the fourth wall in that? I mean, I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Well, now we got to go and do some research.
Yeah, I was thinking that it didn't start that way. I thought the reading that I did said that it didn't start out that way, but a certain writer came along and did that. So I don't know. You don't know what to believe these days anyway. So.
Were there any other comics that like to break the fourth wall?
She-Hulk?
Yeah.
With John Byrne, when he did it, he broke the fourth wall quite a bit.
Yes, actually, I did an issue of She-Hulk way back when, and you're right. She broke the fourth wall in the issue I did. She got blown up or something like that, and she's kind of sideways, and she turns and she's looking at the audience, and she goes, "Of course, this means war." So yeah, I do remember her breaking the
two
fourth
inside jokes there. So that's a Bugs Bunny reference.
That's a Bugs Bunny. Speaking of which, he also broke the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm. Always, all the time, he broke the fourth wall. Yes. So, does anybody know when the fourth wall first got erected? When it first was done as a concept? I looked it up.
Oh, Shakespeare?
It was in the 1700s, early 1700s. I think Shakespeare was before that, right? I'm not a Shakespeare. Anybody out there who's a big Shakespeare fan? I apologize.
I have all his books.
Yeah,
and I have read a couple. I have read a couple of his plays.
I've read a couple of novelizations of it because I can't.
1600s.
16.
Yeah.
So late 1500s, 1600s. So he died in 1616.
But I believe it was the 1700s when some actor or director came up with the idea that the actors were to pretend that there was a fourth wall from the stage. The early Greeks, there was no fourth wall. They were speaking directly to the audience all the time. They did soliloquies and stuff like that. And I think that also was done by Shakespeare, because Hamlet does a soliloquy and it's essentially to the audience. Mm-hmm. Although he's more or less talking to himself. But so they erected that fourth wall then, and almost immediately it started getting broken down by certain actors and certain things. But I read yesterday that's when it first got erected was in the early 1700s.
All right, Pops.
And that's your history lesson for today.
And Pops has chimed in after Deadpool number 28, where Wade carried on making references to issue numbers and making jokes that flirted with the fourth wall. But the first true fourth wall break where Deadpool openly references being a real person did not happen until Deadpool 33 by Joe Kelly and David Bureau. Pops, you are like an encyclopedia.
I believe that sounds exactly like what I read yesterday about it. So
I swear to God, he's got all this stuff in his little noggin there.
Good for you, sir.
What happens then when you have theater in the round? There's no walls.
You have to pretend about all four. So.
And do you like it, Kaz? Do you like?
I think it depends on how. I really think it depends on how it's done, right? Like, if somehow I can relate to it. I mean, Deadpool does it in a comical way, and I think I'm trying to think nowadays, most times I see the fourth wall broken is in a comedic way. I can't think of a time in recent history where I've seen it done in like a serious way. I'm sure there
Yeah,
are times, but I can't
it's
really.
usually done with a wink and a nod. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Like
not
you're
a
in the inside joke, like you and that
yeah.
person are in an inside joke. So I think that the instances where I see it, I enjoy it. I can think of, pseudo fourth wall breaking. Like again, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but The Office, whenever I know it's
Mhm.
set up to be a documentary, so they feel like they're being filmed, so that it's not true fourth wall breaking, but it feels like it because it feels like they're talking to you when they make
It
the
gives
inside.
them a license to break that fourth wall. Yeah,
Yeah,
gives
and
them an
so
easy license to break that fourth
Yeah,
wall.
and that's kind of a brilliant idea, actually. Where this is supposed to be a show about a documentary, so they're going to talk right into the lens at you because we're supposedly filming them.
But it's
Yeah.
rare though. It's almost like it's the outtake for them. Like they're not supposed to talk to you directly or look directly in the camera, but they are, and they're making facial
Yeah, Jim
expressions that are
is constantly
Yeah,
making
yeah,
looks at the camera like, can you believe they just did that?
yeah. It's
That sort of stuff. And I don't watch much of the show, but I noticed that
Yeah,
a few times I watched it.
Jim is constant. Yeah,
so I
Yeah,
can
he's
say that
constantly doing that.
I like it. In the iterations that I've seen of it, I enjoy it when it's done well, and me and the medium and an inside joke kind of going in there and enjoying it. So
I think the first time I ever really noticed a fourth wall break was Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
mm,
Yeah.
Ferris
That's
Bueller's
a
Day
really
Off.
good use of breaking that fourth wall.
Yeah. And apparently Blazing Saddles also broke the fourth wall, but I do not remember it.
Yes, it does. Several times.
Wayne's
As-
World?
Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Yep. And what's the other? So you brought up Blazing Saddles. What was the other? Robin Hood,
Frankenstein?
Men in Tights probably did the same thing.
did they?
Yeah, I think so. Spaceballs.
Spaceballs?
They were all written by all Mel Brooks movies. He at one point in time he'll break the fourth wall somewhere.
Did Princess Bride
least
break
once.
the fourth wall?
Which what?
Princess Bride, did that break the fourth wall?
I don't know about Princess Bride though.
I'm
It feels
thinking
like
it did,
did.
but I can't.
Yeah,
be
but I
sure.
can't remember.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, so I do not recall.
Well, I have a list here.
If my kids were here, they could tell us.
The one that really shocks me is American Psycho.
I've never seen it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was
apparently
crazy.
Apparently, it breaks the fourth wall.
Huh.
But I do not. I never watched
Well,
it.
but
so.
American Psycho, in a sense, actually breaks the wall right from the get-go because the actual main character is narrating the story. Right.
Yeah, but we're not including narration and breaking the fourth wall.
No,
right?
no. But the fact that he's narrating the story is he's telling the story to you, the viewer, from his perspective, and then
which is what Ferris Bueller does as well.
So he's talking to you. So yeah, it's a kind of a bizarre.
Well, that's an interesting question. Would you consider a narration voiceover to the audience as breaking the fourth wall or not? Or does it have to be on screen, them looking at the screen and talking to you?
I don't think that narration. I feel that narration does not qualify, right? I think it's breaking the fourth wall when you're in a moment, and then that character addresses you who are not in that same place and time, right? Like you're there in time, but you're not at that same place. They're breaking that fourth wall, that dimension to go, boom, hey, you, here's the thing, right? Or did you see that thing? Or narration is just kind of the story being told, and I don't know if that, in my opinion,
I think breaking the fourth wall is more or less making an editorial comment on what just transpired in the movie. At least I can't think of any that aren't like that. And if anybody can, I'm willing to be enlightened.
So
But
apparently,
most of the time,
the end of Psycho, when Norman looks at the audience, is that's Psycho. But I saw what was American Psycho, also broke the fourth wall. American Psycho with
Christian Bale.
Yes,
Yeah.
Christian Bale.
I've never seen it, but yeah.
I've never seen it either.
Yeah, I don't want to see it. Everything I've read about it tells me I do not want to see that. So, yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, he breaks the fourth wall, and I think it's well done myself. I think that's a brilliant movie. Not because it has Robert Downey Jr. in it either.
Well,
it's just because
an interesting aside on that is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is what the Japanese call James Bond. Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's what the Japanese
we managed
call
to get James Bond worked in here.
Yeah, I did it.
You did it. You did it.
There are TV shows that have also broken them.
Yeah,
The Simpsons is kind of famous for that.
Moonlighting.
Yes, Moonlighting did that too.
Moonlighting did it.
Did it really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Never saw it.
I vaguely.
It's kind of dated, but it's still an interesting watch. I believe it was on. Is it on? I believe it's on Hulu right now, or it's on one of the one of the free streaming services. I take that back. One of the streaming services. It may be a pay for. I think I get Hulu surreptitiously. So, but yeah.
And do you think
there.
You think they did it well, or was it awkward?
No, they did it well. I think it worked on that show. That show was it was played satirically a lot. I mean, there were serious moments, but it was played satirically.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, everybody knows that Warner Brothers loved to break the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers cartoons, especially Bugs Bunny. I mean, that was like,
yeah, that was his thing.
Yeah, and that's where the whole, of course, this means war comes from.
War.
Apparently, the fourth wall was broken in 1932. Who knew?
Charlie Chaplin?
Nope. Horse Feathers, a Marx Brothers classic.
Marx Brothers. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. They were one of the. In the early movies, they were one of the first ones to do that. Yeah, I mean, it'd been done on the stage occasionally, but yeah.
So, any other? I mean, do you think it's a gimmick? It's gimmicky, or do you think it's a legitimate storytelling technique? Kaz?
I think it's legitimate. Again, I mean, everything. I think every tool you use can be legitimate, but again, I think it's hard to execute well, right? Because if you overdo it, it just becomes like I don't want just carry on with the story. Like, don't. This seems very corny that you kind of talk to me all the time.
I thought Ferris Bueller went really close to going over the line with that. He was almost constantly breaking that fourth wall. And I think he almost, went too far with it.
And I think Deadpool overdoes it.
Do you really?
I have not seen any of them yet, so I don't know. My son has recommended I see them, so I may break down. But so far, I haven't seen any of them.
I will say he increased it a lot for 3. It felt like for the Wolverine one, it felt like he kind of did a lot more of it. Yeah, but
pushed it over the top.
Yeah, I don't know that it went over the top though, because I think at this point we expected everything.
We expect it from him. Yeah. Yes, we expect it from that character and Ryan Reynolds. I mean, yeah. I don't know. He's just he's an interesting actor. He really is. He's kind of playing himself in most of his parts, but at the same time, he's also playing a character. He's one of those actors, kind of like Cary Grant was that way too. Cary Grant always was playing himself. And you watch any of his movies, that character is him, more or less, just thrown into a particular situation.
Yeah, almost every single Ryan Reynolds movie, he's self-aware as a character.
Yes. Yeah,
right. He's always what was the early comedy, the college comedy that he was in?
Van Wilder, was that it?
Yes, that's the one. Like,
I've never seen it.
Like, he is super self-aware. Whatever you do, if you don't want a disgusting scene seared into your mind, don't watch it.
Did Jim Carrey break the fourth wall a lot? I'm trying to think.
Yes, he did.
Yes,
he
did it in Living Color.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would do it in like a lot of skits that he was in. He'd break. I guess back in the '90s, that was kind of a thing, right? In comedy, to break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
but sometimes
Live was doing it.
I think it was overdone in the '90s, truthfully, and it wasn't always done well. If it throws you out of the whole story, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and I could think. Maybe in my mind's eye, I'm seeing this, and I don't know that it really happened or not. But it seems like to me in the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves as playing Superman and Clark Kent, there's at least one time when he turns and winks at the camera, and that to me is a breaking of the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Is that I got it over on Lois again. It's got that kind of thing, but.
Did the Batman TV show break the fourth wall?
I'm trying to think.
I
don't recall them breaking the fourth wall.
Or it might have been in a more subtle way.
Yeah, it would have to have been small, very small. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was self-aware, but I don't think they ever broke the fourth wall. If somebody had an example of it, I would go, yeah. Okay,
what about Get Smart?
Get Smart?
I don't know.
Yes.
They broke the fourth wall?
For some reason, it feels like they did, but I can't quite put my finger. Like
you don't have an instance of it, but you can.
But it's not.
I can't remember.
It wasn't a regular. It wasn't a regular.
It would
thing
be really subtle.
Yeah.
He would give a nod. I feel like the main character would give a nod to the audience at some point,
or just
in a show.
Sometimes
somewhere.
it's just a look at the
Very
camera.
subtle.
Yeah, it's a look at the camera and then go on. You don't say anything. That might have happened. It's been a long time since I've watched any of that, so I can't say for sure.
I know
but
Friends.
It's possible. I'm sorry.
Friends broke the fourth wall, and I think it worked for that.
Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see Chandler doing it.
And Buffy the Vampire Slayer also broke the fourth wall.
Oh yeah, I imagine they did. Yes.
Yeah, Rosales Comics had a really good comment. Saved by the Bell broke the fourth wall a lot. I didn't think it did. It broke the fourth wall a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she calls it a narrative device, which is a really good way of putting it.
Yes,
it is a narrative device.
It is. Agreed.
I mean, there's a lot of different types of narrative devices, but that one, if used well, I think can really add a lot to a film.
It has to be used. We were talking about Ferris Bueller and how it seemed like he used it too much. It has to be used sparingly to work well. I think it can't be. You can't have every scene breaking the fourth wall. That just destroys the narrative completely. But an occasional aside, I think, works much better. That's in my humble opinion.
I've heard people say that the She-Hulk TV program on Disney Plus had too much of the fourth wall being broken.
I've read that as well. Again, something I haven't seen. I don't have Disney Plus.
I enjoyed it.
I don't know that it had too much. I mean, how would you? I don't know that it had too much, but I don't think that people were invested enough in the story that the device was used and it enhanced it in some way. I don't think that people thought it was an enhancement of the story. I think people just didn't really like the stories. And so any other devices that are not traditional in storytelling just kind of stick out, and they're kind of like thorns, right? Like you can pick up on all of it and say that you don't like it after, you know, you don't like the whole thing. Yeah.
And then you're being upstaged by your cat again.
Always.
Yes.
Always. One of two.
But the thing was, you know, people should have expected it because, I mean, that's the way it was in the comics too.
Yeah.
But you got to think the majority of the audience that watched She-Hulk wasn't a She-Hulk comic reader, right? Like they don't know anything about it, right? Deadpool is the same way. I bet you the majority of the people who saw Deadpool for the first time didn't even know that he broke the fourth wall, right? Because they just didn't, especially if they were left with the version that was in the first Wolverine movie. They had no idea.
Well, he couldn't even talk.
Right.
Didn't they?
Well, he did in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
He did in the beginning, but still.
I haven't seen it. I've only read about it. But yeah, they stifled Ryan Reynolds from the get-go in that movie, which is, I mean, you've got a comedic genius on your hands, and you slap your hand over his mouth.
And he's like that in real life too, because I've seen interviews with him, and he is just witty right off.
Yeah, David Letterman interviewed him on his Netflix series, and yeah, he is just
just like Robin Williams used to be.
Yeah.
Now, Rosales has a really good question. In Blair Witch, they use the cameras as a diary. Would you consider found footage fourth wall breaking?
No,
and this kind of goes back to where this kind of goes back to The Office, where it's supposedly a documentary.
Yeah,
I think that's different, though. I think that's different. So found footage and showing that is just a revelation. To me, this is opinion, right? It's just a revelation of another story. It's not like it would be different if they rigged it so that in the found, like it's a time traveling thing, and in the found footage, it is now addressing the audience, right? Like I am outside of the timeline and I am talking to you, who I'm not even really supposed to be talking to. But if it's just found footage of an event, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when they show like the found footage at the end, or even Cloverfield or something like that, where they kind of expose the found footage at the end. I personally would not.
I would agree with that. That's not breaking the fourth wall.
It's just part of the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Advancing the story.
Depending on how it's used. If it's just found footage that is just found footage, right, of an event, or like the missing piece of an event that now we can see for the first time, I would not consider it. But if it did somehow address like the audience in a way that just doesn't seem like natural.
Outside the narrative that's being told in the footage itself, it takes completely out of that story and addresses the story as a story rather than something that's really happening. So
sort of like, if you're reading this, I'm dead, type of thing.
Right, to the audience though, not to a character in the film.
And American Beauty starts that way too. Is 10 days before I died, I think, is how it starts. And then the narrative starts in. And by the end of the movie, you've forgotten that it's the dead man telling the story. And you get to the end and go, oh.
But only if they're telling the story to you, not like the general narrative voice that's like overarching, just explaining the story.
He was the narrator. He didn't break the fourth wall. That movie, they didn't break the fourth wall. That was the narration. But it's the fact that you had that you had the fact that I'm dead, and you're telling the story, and then suddenly before the end of the movie you've forgotten that that's what's going on, and it's thrown back in your face again. I think that's the brilliance of American Beauty, and it won an Oscar if I recall correctly.
I think so,
and I thought it was a beautifully made film. But that's not the topic.
Martin, you're so quiet up at the top.
Yeah.
Martin, you haven't said anything.
Martin is just. Have you fallen asleep up there, Martin?
I don't don't know if I have much to say about this topic. So
Do you like it? Do you not like
yeah,
it?
I do.
Yeah.
I do actually. So so like when we were talking about Ferris Bueller earlier, I think the part of it is if it is the storytelling trope that you're using to tell the story, and you kind of introduce it to the people, and you get it, then it's it can be a very entertaining mechanism to tell a story. So so in a way it becomes a kind of like the story may not even be real, but the story is fun, right? If that makes any sense. So so like if you're like, is Ferris Bueller like the story that we were told throughout the entire movie was like any of that actually a true? I know it's not a true story, but like in the sense that it was telling the story, the narrator tells us the tale, but was any of it real? Right? At the end of the movie, you're kind of left with a little bit of the.
Yeah, was he making it all up? So,
maybe I was strung along this whole time, right? So, and that's part of the charm of that, at least in that movie. So yeah, I think it's a relevant device, and I think even you could say that Shakespeare uses it. When he uses his different kind of people to kind of talk to the audience in various parts of to help narration move forward. So,
yeah, he's when Shakespeare does it, he is trying to elicit an opinion from the audience.
Yeah.
Either change their opinion or make them think from a different point of view. Because a lot of his fourth wall breaking is asking questions of the audience.
Yeah,
to make them think.
But just to note that when Shakespeare was doing that, there wasn't the concept of the fourth wall necessarily. It was more formalized later on, and the ancient Greeks broke the fourth wall all the time, and it was and I think Shakespeare used some of that same thing, but he used it for what you're talking about, in that he was helping carry the narrative forward with those soliloquies. It's the thoughts that are going on inside the head of the character, is the way I saw it, and he's essentially speaking to the audience as his conscience, trying to convince them and himself of what he's talking about.
And himself. That's a very good observation about that. There have been other comic books that have broken the fourth wall. Did any of you guys ever read Lobo?
Yeah,
maybe one or two issues here and there.
Yeah, didn't follow it that much, but I like the concept of the character.
And
he was kind of an ambush. He and Ambush Bug were both like Deadpool, in that they were satirical and fourth wall breakers all the time. Both of them were.
There were a few Joker comics that were also fourth wall breakers.
So that would bring up the writer Keith Tiffin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was that so? A lot of his books, the characters break fourth walls.
He did Ambush Bug.
Yeah.
Howard the Duck.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but yes.
Yeah, I get
it was Steve Gerber, the one who wrote that.
Yeah, Steve Gerber.
Yeah, he was trying to make comments on society with Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
So he would have to do
social commentary,
soliloquy every once in a while to on the state of affairs of this. He was from an alternate universe in which animals and were where Donald Duck lived, and Daffy Duck lived, and Bugs, that kind of universe. And here he's stuck in ours as an observer of the absurdities of our universe. So that's a very powerful device. that he came up with Howard the Duck. I thought.
And so it worked for you.
Big time it worked for me, yeah.
It's so interesting because as a writer, I could see why you would never want to do it because, for the same reason why you don't really want to have narration. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like one of those things where, man, that feels like a cop out. Just write the story in a way where the events flow and people understand it and get bought into it. But I understand why it's so powerful when you do it because it's it's the exception, right? So when you execute it very well, it's so not in the classic kind of formula of a story.
It has to be
powerful.
It has to be well written to work, in my opinion.
But what an intimidating
it is
process for a writer.
Yeah. I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would ever attempt to do it, and it's not because I'm afraid. I just don't know that I would ever want to attempt to do it.
It's probably not your storytelling style.
Yeah,
it doesn't fit in your whole to do it that way.
This is going to bring up a very interesting book because possibly the entire book breaks the fourth wall. Because so you brought up that you don't want narration per se, okay?
Yeah, meaning I could see how a trained writer would not like really want to use the.
So, but the book Electra Assassin by Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz, that entire book is an anomaly of all sorts because the entire thing is done in narration.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done with word boxes. I don't think there's a word balloon in the entire book. Or if there are, they are like done like artsy fartsy kind of stuff. But the entire book kind of is like messing with the perception of the reader. And it's almost like the narration or the storytelling is breaking the fourth wall, not necessarily the images per se. So so I don't know. That would be a very interesting book to read to see, at least for storytelling.
So it's all done in captions?
I think almost the entirety of the book is done in captions.
So I can't comment. I missed it.
If I remember correctly, I know a majority of it is like. So
Which one is it, Martin? Electra Assassin? What did you say?
Electra Assassin, yeah.
Yeah, it's a signpost in the 80s. It's another one of those storytelling signposts that Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz both. They were both.
So what happened was they were firing on all. Yeah, they were firing on all cylinders, and they ended up playing a game with each other, and the game was like this. Frank Miller would write the page, then he'd send it off to Bill Sienkiewicz. Bill Sienkiewicz would read the page, then retranslate it, send it back to Frank Miller, and then Frank Miller realized that he had to rewrite the page because what he was given. So then he rewrote it, and then they would like going back and forth, and then they would like figure out, and so they ended up with this. I mean, it's a masterpiece of storytelling in my view, but it turned into this like weird thing.
It's one of those cases of what I call synergy.
Yeah,
where the each of the parts that the people bring to it are this quantity, and then when they're put together, they're this quantity. You know, it expands the whole thing. So, and I don't, that's lightning in a bottle. I don't know that can be captured easily again anywhere. But I haven't read it, so I can only comment from the outside of it. But it impressed a lot of the folks that were reading the comics at the same time. I was reading other things, but they were always telling me how great it was.
All right. Katie says, how about when the characters talk to the cartoonist? Recently ran into a lot in Jeff Smith's Thorn reprint.
I would think that counts.
As fourth wall?
I think so, yeah. If the cartoonist is not a part of the story and there's like this outside element that it is not like really apparent that the character should be talking to the cartoonist, but they are, like, you know, how about you draw that different? It'd be like random in the thing. I think that would be breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, that's happened in Warner Brother cartoons. I mean, I could think of one with Daffy Duck right off the top of my head, where he's talking directly to the cartoonist, and the cartoonist erases part of him and redraws him as
yeah,
these
I've
weird
seen
characters.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about. Yeah. And I just thought of another one that we haven't discussed so far that I think broke the fourth wall occasionally, and that's Cerebus.
Yeah.
The Earth Pig Aardvark.
Yep.
And I think Dave Sim broke the fourth wall occasionally with that
Is that what
character.
Cerebus was? I thought it was like a turtle looking thing.
No, yeah, it's a badly drawn aardvark.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Okay,
it's a badly drawn aardvark. I mean, aardvarks are called earth pigs, and it looked more like a pig than it did an aardvark. But he was supposed to be an aardvark.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Jay and Silent Bob did it too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was part of the whole idea, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. Was that the sly aside?
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
yeah,
in a weird way, Jay and Silent Bob came across as sort of like a mockumentary, so it kind of made sense that they broke the fourth wall. So,
yeah.
like it seemed like they were aware the cameras were there. So, oh, I was wrong. I was wrong. There are word balloons in
yeah, I wondered.
In Electro Assassin.
I couldn't comment, like I said, because I haven't read it.
In Avengers Savage Land, when it's Conan and the Punisher, like almost that whole kind of time in that issue with them in the past, it's very rarely them. They do talk to each other, but it's very rarely them talking, and it is a lot of narration as to what's going on, which was kind of cool. So I could see a story where they would do that, especially if the two folks don't really communicate well, but they have to do a thing together. It would be kind of cool to do it in that instance, but I don't think I can think of a whole book that's that, but I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there's plenty that are out there.
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I've seen stories before where the narrator is obviously talking to his audience, but then it's cutting back to scenes, to show what he's narrating, and you'll talk to them, and then you'll see, it'll play out as a flashback or something like that. And he'll have some more comments and another flashback. Do you consider that to be breaking the fourth wall?
Yeah, I think I do. If they're breaking the story to talk to an audience, like that is not a part of the story. Like, I can't really recall all of it, but Fight Club, right? Like if they are breaking it and they're narrating, but then they start talking to you, like, and asking you questions of, like, as an audience person, and not like, not a part of the story, then I mean, I guess I would consider that.
All right. So Edgar Rice Burroughs and the Mars series, where it starts out, where John Carter is actually talking or writing. It's a long time ago, so he's writing the story to his nephew, I think. And so the whole story
in the movie, yeah.
Well, so in the books too.
It's been so long since I've read the books, I don't recall.
So the whole story is him telling this story to his nephew.
Now that would not be breaking the fourth wall.
That's just what?
Right, because again, he's telling. I'm assuming that his nephew is like, since he's in that universe as a character, right? Even though he may not be in the story that is being told, he is a character in that book, right? That
the whole book is a letter,
right, to a fictional person that is in. You know what I mean?
So if it's a fictional person, it's not breaking the fourth wall.
I would not think so, right? Like if they are interrupting this universe to talk to, a spectating audience, right, or a reader, like, or the person who's consuming the content in the real world, I would think that's the wall. That's the wall that they're breaking. They're breaking the story wall, like the wall of that universe, to talk to us or to talk to, the real folks consuming the content.
Yeah, if that's how Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote it, he's telling the story to a character in the book.
Mm-hmm.
He's not turning and telling us the story.
No, he's writing a letter to his fictional nephew. Yeah.
Yes, so that's not breaking the fourth wall in my mind. But
this brings up a really interesting idea.
Ooh.
And Cassisi, maybe this is a challenge for you. Is it possible? Is it possible to write the entire story, breaking the fourth wall, and incorporating you, the outside individual who's reading the story, to become part of it?
Well, that's the 80s, right? When you think of the toys in the 80s, what was the toy? I mean, you guys may not remember this. I was a kid and it was exciting to me, where you could buy the VHS tape and you had a gun and you could like choose basically your own
Silverhawks?
No, that was a cartoon. It was like
your own adventure?
It's that kind of, but it was like a toy where you had the VHS and you can shoot the TV. Do you not?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
I was raising kids in the 80s. I wasn't.
They were the metallic. They were like the metallic.
Yes,
the metallic guys. Then they, and you had to,
and you as the viewer.
You
as the viewer are kind of choosing the direction. I mean, it was set, right? You could only do so many things.
But well, as you're running through the scenes, you could shoot at the different things and get points and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I would imagine that you could but it would be basically as a writer, you would be gaming it to create so many paths that a person could go down, right? And it would be kind of.
And I think what you're talking about there, Martin, is what I think entertainment is morphing into, in that I think video games are now selling as much, are making as much money as movies are.
Well, it depends on the video.
So, and I'm thinking that movies and video games are going to come closer and closer together, in that suddenly each audience member can become a cast member in this story. Because of the way that it's built. I mean, now when you get into a third-person shooter game that has this world all mapped out and everything's in 3D, and if you put on a VR headset to play it, you're in it. You're in the movie. You're essentially in a movie then, and you're affecting how the movie goes. So, to my mind, I think that's what you're talking about. It's the holodeck on Next Generation.
Sort of, but like, is it possible to write a comic, like a comic, where the entire reference is to the person on the outside, and you pull them along, but they somehow feel like they're a part of the story because you're talking to them and bringing them through?
I think if you could do it, it would be a very masterful thing. I think the danger is you have a reader who wants to do things that you as a writer just don't think about, and you lose the readers because it's not happening the way I want it to happen, right? A masterful writer though could put in all the devices that kind of manipulate the
reader to go where he wants them
to go. Right?
That would be a masterful piece.
Yeah, you would have really good and know a lot.
You are essentially manipulating the reader into thinking that they have made it go this way.
Right. It was their choice.
Wow, that's a hell of a concept there.
I mean, you could argue people do it all the time.
and
advertisements, but
the TV VHS thing, Captain Power.
Captain Power. There you go. Yes, there you go.
No, nothing about it. I guess.
Yeah.
No, I never even heard of it. No.
After my time.
I had all the little figures.
It really felt like the future at the time. Like,
yeah. I went and played the game at my friend's place, and we got frustrated because we were like, I don't know how this is working. Like, am I scoring points? Am I not scoring? What?
Oh, it's so great.
If something like that came along today, it would actually work a lot better. Yeah, because in a VHS you've got a tape and it has to fast forward or go backwards in order to get to the next piece that you're trying to get to.
Well, it just played through and you just shot at the screen and you got points.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
It wasn't. Yeah.
But taking that concept a little further, that's essentially what video games are now.
Yeah, kind of.
You're affecting the story by being in it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And virtual reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would.
Yeah. Once you VR helmet and you're in it.
Come in.
You're there.
Hang on. Do we have a guest? Oh.
What is it?
Come here.
Woo.
Come here. We have a guest.
Oh wow.
Hello.
Hey. Can you break the fourth wall and say hi to Internet Land?
Who are these?
Yeah.
These are my friends.
Oh.
We're talking about movies
And comic books.
And comic books.
and comic books. What's your favorite movie?
Elsa.
Elsa.
Elsa and Anna.
Oh, Frozen.
Elsa and Anna. Yeah.
Frozen.
And-
Yeah.
Yep. And then here's the grandson as well.
Hey.
Yep. You notice what the shirt he's wearing?
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have to take this off. Right there. Now you can hear him. Pokemon. Oh, we still can't hear.
Pokemon.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody say hi, and then you guys got to go back out with Papa. Say bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Yes, Munchkins. That's right. Okay, guys, go on with Papa and close the door on your way out. All right, I'll be there.
Why do you have Mickey?
Why do I have Mickey? Because he's too big for you to take to bed. That's why.
Oh.
Okay.
She accepted it as an answer. Oh.
Okay. Well,
That makes sense.
There must have been a discussion earlier about that. I have a feeling.
Yeah, well, if it were up to her, she'd have every plushie and every doll in her bed, and there wouldn't be any room for her.
Yeah. And how old is she?
3. She's going to be 4 in about a month.
Yeah.
She's pretty tall for a 3-year-old.
Yeah, she's pretty brilliant for a 3-year-old.
They're scary. They're scary.
Very brilliant. She was like,
yeah. My 2-year-old granddaughter is like that too. She's scary sometimes. She'll say something and I go, how does a 2-year-old talk like that?
oh yeah, she uses 3 and 4 syllable words all the time.
Yeah,
I'm not angry. I'm agitated or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of
That's not
stuff.
a
Yeah.
circle.
Words
That's the
like that.
hexagon.
Where did that come from? Yeah.
And now not her big thing now is when she goes into the restroom, she was like, please close the door. I want some privacy. Oh, girl. Yeah.
Go.
All right. One more question here. Well, or maybe 1 or 2. I think it's pretty well acknowledged that breaking the fourth wall works better in comedy rather than drama. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I think that is where I've seen it executed the most. But I don't know that I don't know that I could confidently say it works better. I mean, you could just make the argument that because the bulk of it is in comedy, it must be a device that works better in comedy. But again, I think in the hands of a good writer, you can make it work in any of those scenarios. But
yeah, I'm thinking of Hamlet here in that a serious and essentially a tragedy. That whole soliloquy does about to be or not to be is a very serious, but it's essentially speaking to the audience and himself, as I mentioned, and himself, trying to convince them that it's reasonable for him to take his own life. So yeah, I think it can be done seriously. It is usually done humorously, though.
With satire.
Like. Yeah, it's easier to pull off, I think, that way. It's more difficult to do it seriously, I think.
I wonder how many mysteries. I would think that like a mystery or some sort of whodunit could do breaking.
Ellery Queen. Ellery Queen, the TV show, did that.
Mm.
At the end of the third act, just before the end of the show, Ellery Queen would turn to the camera and go, "Do you know who did it? Don't you?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they'd cut to the commercial break, and then they come back and solve the crime or the mystery.
Yeah.
So yes, that could be done as well. Yeah.
And I think it's a lot easier for writers to do it with a wink, wink, nudge, nudge type of situation. Yeah. Than to build it into a drama situation. It's just, it's easier, or you could say it's lazier, but I think you are correct in that it could be done in a drama situation and done very well.
I guess it is in a comedy, like a well-timed joke. The momentum shifts, right? Like it feels like if you break the fourth wall, you're kind of in a natural story, like almost interrupting it to do the thing that is unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
And in comedy,
it throws me out of the story.
Right. But in comedy, that could have a really good effect. Like I'm interrupting to do this silly thing. And it's like, oh, got it. I got it.
Get it.
Right. But in a drama, you're building up to that moment. And so if you kind of interrupt it, it has to be done really well, or else, like Barbara said, you take me out the story. I was all like on the roller coaster ride, and now you want to interrupt me to tell me this. I'm like invested to see what is next.
Yeah, that can be done effectively as a storytelling device. You're getting to that point, and then boom, you've got beats going in the story, and that's the ending beat. And then
the transition.
Then you have a measure or two of silence, and then you go into. So yeah,
Martin.
Yeah, it's almost like Knives Out seems like it does a little bit of that. I'm thinking of especially the second one.
Yes,
it seems, especially the second one seemed to.
Yeah, they skirt it very, very on a razor's edge.
And then there was what was this thing with? There was another mystery story that they do that regularly. He's narrating the story. Oh dang, I can't remember what it was. It was on Hulu or one of the other ones as a mystery. It was a multi-part thing, and it had the guy from Princess Bride, who was the actor who was the swordsman, and my name is Antigua Montoya. You killed
Mandy
my father. Mandy
Okay.
Patinkin was in it. It was playing a detective, and that detective broke the fourth wall almost every episode. So, and I don't know what the name of that show was. People out there, Google it, Mandy Patinkin mystery, and you'll find it. It was excellent, very well done.
Would you say Kill
good
Bill?
afternoon from San Francisco. Okay.
Looks like a fun panel.
Kill Bill?
Yeah. And then would you say that when it broke the
little
fourth wall, it's comedic, or would you just say that it's
It was dramatic, but at the same time it was I wouldn't say it was comedic. It wasn't serious.
It's so weird, right?
Yeah, it was not completely serious, but at the same time it was a serious story being told. He would say, and he addressed, "Dear reader, this is what happened," and then they would go into the story. It was that kind of fourth wall breaking, and then it might get to a point in the story, a beat in the story, and then he would talk to you again as the reader, like he was writing a book. But he says he's the reader, not talking as the narrator, the omniscient observer of everything. He was a part of the story, and he's telling the story, and he's turning to the reader and saying, "Okay, here." So it was an interesting way to do it, I thought. So, and I consider it comes very close to breaking the fourth wall, but I don't know if it quite meets the
It feels
criteria
more like narration.
because he's the narrator.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
bending.
more like narration.
It's bending the fourth wall.
Yeah, yeah.
So for a more serious one, breaking of the fourth wall, the show House of Cards with Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
Watch it. Yeah.
So that'd be a little bit more of a serious approach, where that kind of works.
Kind of works, or it does work.
I have never seen it.
Again, we're getting into the discussion of whether it works easier and better as a humorous device, or.
Well, see, the thing is, in a weird way, it actually brought levity to the show when he does it in. I always saw it as a tongue-in-cheek thing.
So then it seems like there's greater success doing it in a comedic or humorous way,
or slight undertones of comedy in it.
Yeah,
kind of like the way James Bond essentially with his little quips that he makes. Those are in a way breaking the fourth wall, but not. So I mean, it seemed like to me Roger Moore was always winking at the audience when playing, which is part of why I didn't care for him as James Bond. But that's a discussion for another time. I don't consider him a true James Bond. But yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say we're going to have to wrap it up because I got to go put the munchkins to bed.
Yeah.
801. So 801 here in the middle.
There's a piece of trivia since you brought up the James Bond. George Lazenby's version of James Bond.
Yes, he does
break the fourth wall. This doesn't happen to the other fella. But
after the fight on the beach,
there is a in that George Lazenby's version of James Bond. There is a fascinating anatomical trait that is given to James Bond. So should you ever look it up, you might discover a very fascinating thing about him in that film. But I won't tell you what that is.
Okay. Well, folks, as I said, I have to go help Papa put the munchkins to bed for the night. So thank you for a very stimulating conversation. I was worried we wouldn't be able to fill an hour with just this discussion, but as usual,
not with this group. Not with this group.
Just fine. So
you too, time skills.
Yeah, thank you. So as we like to say here on Wednesday, Wham! Make mine Silverline.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.